And President Trump arrived in Great Britain holding hands with Prime Minister Theresa May, and after all the fake news chaos, made this announcement.
Prime Minister May and I have just come from a very productive NATO summit. That was truly a productive summit, where my top priority was getting other NATO members to pay their full and fair share. I'm pleased to report that we have received substantial commitments from members to increase their defense spending and to do so in a much more timely manner.
And so the relationship, the special relationship, is stronger than ever. And our NATO allies are pledging to pony up. Maybe President Trump's tactics are working.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
Here with reaction, former White House strategist Dr. Sebastian Gorka and Nigel Farage, the former UK Independence Party leader, considered to be the architect behind Brexit. All right, Dr. Gorka, what do you think about the president going over there and collecting bills from our allies? That's a good thing, don't you think?
I love it, Jesse. I mean, imagine if you're a member of a club where 80% of the club members aren't paying their dues and you get stuck with the bill. I mean, that's NATO since the end of the Cold War. Out of 29 members, only 6 of them, including America, actually pays more than 2% of their GDP on defense. It's the freeloader complex, and it's got to end. And instead of fancy press statements and protocol, the president goes there and on camera calls them out and gets commitments, and also does what? Tells them stop getting into bed with Russia. We've been waiting for this for decades.
Right.
Finally, we have a president who's doing it.
Because past presidents, Nigel, probably said these things behind closed doors. Never anybody said this out loud in front of the cameras like this. He kind of reminds me of the guy when the bill comes at a restaurant with a group of people. He goes through the bill and itemizes it out and says, you know what? You had the steak, you had the wine, I didn't have any wine, I just had a salad. Let's play this thing fair and square.
Yeah, but you know, the media that you're talking about, basically, you are seen as virtuous and good if you denigrate your own country, if you give away as much of your own taxpayers' money as you possibly can, and if you make sure that democratic decisions are transferred from your country to somebody else. And the Germany thing's really interesting. I mean, here is Trump calling out German hypocrisy, and worth remembering that the former German chancellor now works for, you've guessed it, a Russian gas company, and yet Obama wanted Germany to be the dominant new force in the United States of Europe, run by the sour-faced Mrs. Merkel. I mean, the whole thing's unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember, I think Juan Williams said the other day on the 5, he goes, I don't know if we want Germany to be too big and strong. We've had some problems there before.
Wow.
Let me ask you guys a hypothetical question, and I'll start with you, Dr. Gorka. Let's pretend Hillary Clinton was president, okay? Brace yourself. Hillary's president, and she flew over there on Air Force One to Europe. What do you think would have happened if Hillary had been over there?
Are you trying to give me nightmares, Jesse? Please. Look, well, what happened last time? She goes and meets Lavrov, this complete Cold War warrior foreign minister of Russia, and he just eats her lunch. She comes with this cheesy plastic button and says, hey, let's reset our relations. And he goes, it is not translated properly. It says overcharge, not reset. I mean, he made a fool of her, an utter fool of her, and we wanted her, somebody wanted her to be president. Look, I don't care what God you pray to, the viewers out there, but November the 8th, 2016 is proof that God exists because Donald Trump won that election.
That's true. And Nigel, very powerful images over there that are being broadcast all over the world of President Trump walking with the Queen. Very formal ceremony, which I thought was quite touching and special. And they really rolled out the red carpet. And to see those images of our president shaking hands with the Queen and being saluted the way he was saluted, I think shows the American people and the world something very strong and very powerful and very special. Would you agree?
Oh, and very special to him. In my conversations with him, there is no doubt in my mind he has enormous respect for the Queen. She is the most extraordinary figure, and that for him today, it will have been one of the highlights of his presidency. He will have loved it. I've no idea what they talked about between them, but it would have been a really wonderful thing for him. His mother, who of course was born in Scotland, was a big fan of this Queen, and if you think about it, in a way, they were the world's two most famous people sitting down for tea in Windsor Castle. And after all that I saw in London today,
yes,
with this mob of protesters, and by the way, only one person the protesters hate more than Donald Trump, and that's me. So I've taken some abuse today and had to escape through a few fire exits. But what a nice way for the formal trip to end. Tea with the Queen.
Right. Tea with the Queen. They protested George Bush like this. They protested Ronald Reagan like this. I do find it funny that when European leaders come to Washington, no one shows up to protest because they don't even know who they are and they don't even care. And to be honest with you, everyone over there in Europe is just thinking about the World Cup. So, it is what it is. I want to show you President Trump taking it to the mainstream media. They took it on the chin pretty hard at the press conference with Theresa May. Let's watch some fireworks.
Spent the week taking on NATO allies, criticizing Prime Minister May on her own soil. Right. And I wonder are you giving Russian President Vladimir Putin the upper hand heading into your talks, given that you are challenging these alliances that he seeks to break up and destroy?
See, that's such dishonest reporting because, of course, it happens to be NBC, which is possibly worse than CNN.
Since you attacked CNN, can I ask you a question?
John Roberts, go ahead, John.
Can I ask you a question?
No. John Roberts, go ahead. CNN's fake news. I don't take questions. I don't take questions from CNN. CNN is fake news. I don't take questions from CNN. John Roberts of Fox.
So CNN's fake news here, and it's fake news across the pond, Dr. Gorka. That's pretty astonishing over there. I love watching that stuff.
It's just fabulous. And what are the polling figures? What are the networks doing? You're crushing it with your show. CNN, I think the latest figures published this week, doesn't have a show in the top 15 ranked shows in America. I think, outside of Anderson Cooper watching it and the people who are forced to watch it in airports, nobody's watching CNN. So the president is absolutely right.
Yeah, and Avenatti, the Stormy Daniels lawyer, Nigel, he showed up at the Resist Trump march in London. I mean, of all people, doesn't he have other business to conduct in the United States? Wow. Who's paying for that trip? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, it was a question of virtue signalling. The virtuous were all out on the streets of London today, and most of them that were there come from upper middle class families. They've got rich mummies and daddies. They don't go to work. They have names like Sebastian and Joe Castro.
Nigel.
Yeah, there you are. Well, I'm sorry, Seb, but it's true. Sebastian, Jocasta, Hugo, and they're all frightfully and jolly nice. And isn't this Trump chap simply ghastly? And they don't mean a thing.
That's true. Sebastian, I wouldn't take that laying down. You want to respond to Nigel?
Look, Nigel, I was Sebastian a long time ago, 47 years ago, thanks to my mom. Okay, but let's recognize the people who love him being there. So Nigel's right; these people are irrelevant. But when I grew up in West London and Ealing, when I heard that a pub in Hammersmith is renaming itself the Trump Arms in honor of the president's visit, you know that the salt of the earth Brit loves this man. He's a straight shooter. The Scots love him. So forget about the chattering classes. They're the reason that Brexit happened, and they're the reason Trump won.
And the chattering classes are going to be chattering quite a bit because the president is going to be sitting down with Vladimir Putin, and kind of on the eve of the summit with the Russian leader. Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General here, comes out with big news that he's indicting a bunch of Russians for hacking the DNC and Hillary and all this stuff. What do you make about the timing of this? And Sebastian, will this come of anything, since I guess these Russians are part of the intel service over there? They're never going to step foot here in the United States. What do you think?
Well, look, I've just started reading the indictment. It's probably as irrelevant as the last one that Robert Mueller's team dropped. If you're indicting Russian nationals on Russian soil and Russian companies registered in Russia, that's not going to lead anywhere. The fact is we've had 420 days of the Mueller investigation with not one indictment connected to Russia and the Trump campaign. It's all smoke and mirrors. Rod Rosenstein is an arch bureaucrat swamp dweller. It's not really something that's going to make America safer.
All right, Nigel, real quick, what do you think about the Trump-Putin summit?
We've discovered that 12 spies were spying. Kind of, it's what they do. It's their job. And I tell you something, to hack into Hillary Clinton's emails, you did not need to be a rocket scientist, did you?
That's right. I think Podesta's password was password. All right, gentlemen. Nigel and Sebastian, the two fanciest names that'll ever be on my show at the same time. All right.
Thank you.